Welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
And today we are discussing the first part of Part 5, Dark Hearts, chapters 18 through 20. And we had difficulties, so I don't know how to organically bring it up again, but I would like somebody English to tell me if you call chocolate chip cookies cookies or biscuits. Because chocolate chip biscuits just sounds wrong.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't hear any of that before. I was over here making jokes about Kingdom Hearts. Anyway.
Oh, interesting. I was having a whole conversation by myself about my cookies that I baked this morning.
I've actually wondered that many times. Is it chocolate chip biscuits? Are there chocolate chip scones? There have to be, right?
I don't think in England. That's a North American thing.
It's got to be like in Kentucky somewhere and yeah.
I feel like in England you get scones or you get fruit scones. One is plain, one has raisins.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get into chapter 18. Did I have my book open? No, because I have my plate of cookies in front of me. Chapter art on chapter 18 is a map, a cup of tea, and some biscuits, which are almost immediately then described in the chapter, so I felt real good about that one.
Yeah, it's very legible.
But it's okay because we are getting back into the illegible ones in a bit.
I figured out what that one was, but I had the same
I did too,
feeling.
but at first I was like, talk about auroras.
Rorschach. Yeah. In chapter 18, George locates the true center of the Chelsea outbreak. Barnes ignores his research, and Kipps offers to help Lockwood.
Did forget that we do a little one-sentence summary. With like every single... Okay.
Just in case people... I'm sure that people listen who are like, I've read these books, but they don't remember exactly what happened in chapter 18.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm listening to a podcast like that right now. Not right this instant, but you know what I'm saying.
That would explain a lot. No.
I'm listening to someone talk about Percy Jackson in the background. Yeah. That would explain a lot about my life. It implies that we pick up kind of the morning after where we left off, which is maddening. Like, it makes sense in a book chapter style, but in real life, if somebody was like, I solved it, we'll meet in the morning and we'll talk about it then.
Oh, yeah.
I would be like, excuse me. No, we're meeting now and you're going to explain.
When they say morning, do they mean when they get up or do they mean the actual morning?
We don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to say the morning. The actual morning.
I mean, they're teenagers. Morning for them, even when they're not agents, is noon at the
Right,
earliest. Right? Like, if they're not going to school, they're not getting up before noon. So George pulls out some maps. Well, okay, they've got tea. Look, Holly has these amazing sounding homemade biscuits. Obviously. They're all ready for a proper Lockwood & Co. meeting, but Holly is there.
Aw.
I say that from the point of view of Lucy,
right?
Not me. Although, oh no, it's not even these chapters. After I got to the end of these 3 chapters, I did keep reading a little bit, and like immediately in the next chapter, in 21, Holly's a bit of a bitch.
Oh yeah, it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
Their relationship.
But she has a reason to be, so
sure,
it's fine.
Yeah, as Lucy says, they're all suited and booted.
Yeah. So they put out the maps. They make a joke about it being spotty and therefore it looking like Lockwood when he had... What was it? When I had... Oh, hives. It's good stuff. It's funny. George goes on to talk about how all these things around the disturbance are making the center look like it's not where it is. I described that so well. There's the river, there's some iron areas, and there's a lavender factory or something. And that is smooshing the shape of the outbreak.
Yeah, it reminds me of the very first case in the first book when we find out that the reason that Annabelle Ward was able to manifest was because they moved like an iron bed, and then suddenly the ghost appears.
Yeah.
When they look on the map, they're like, oh, the center must be here based on the activity, but they're not taking into account how it's suppressed by all these environmental elements.
They have like a well-written conversation where they all, add something and blah, blah, blah. There's just not much to say about it.
Yeah.
But eventually, George points out that the center, the focus should be an old department building that is built basically on top of every bad thing that has ever happened in London.
Right. It's plague pits and and bombings and an old prison. It's like just a tiramisu of horror. It's really terrible.
Exactly. Acmere Brothers Department Store. Once world famous, still celebrated, and now, in my opinion, the probable focus of the Chelsea hauntings. And then Lucy says, never heard of it.
I looked this place up because so often he uses real places, but it's not real as far as I can tell. And like looking on maps at the geography that he's talking about at the west end of the King's Road, the only thing there is like a hospital, which could, like looking at the hospital, like it looks a lot like how I imagine Acmere's to look, but is probably, hopefully not built on an ancient prison, I hope.
When we're in the department store later, it feels very inspired by, not like Harrods itself, but like something trying to be Harrods.
Yeah.
Having been in Harrods, I remember like walking down some stairs at one point and being like, but why are there Corinthian columns here? You know, like it's a department store. What is wrong with it? So it's just like way fancier than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Even for a high-end department store. Although I did have the best chicken and mushroom pie I've ever eaten in my life from Harrods, but whatever.
It's back in the days, like what we talked about before with like housing projects and stuff. If you elevate the space, that it somehow elevates everyone, that kind of thinking. Turns out not to work.
Well, that's the feeling that I get from when we're in Acmere's later, and like the guys say, like it's an artistic installation by Gustav, whatever, right? Like that sounds like some Harrods BS. But they also describe it having not being what it used to be, although maybe in the problem Harrods wouldn't be what it used to be.
Yeah, I do like when George is laying out all of his maps and stuff, that he traces things all the way back to before even the information that he got from Kipps.
Yes.
To like some class 1 wraiths and things like that. And he's like, Barnes wouldn't even consider this part of the whole thing, but it like kind of proves George's theory, at least to him. And it just like, again, underlines how he's not part of that Fitz manual crowd. That he's like really digging into minor details. George is the best. He's a genius, like Lockwood says.
Yes, absolutely. And I really like how book 2 was very much, or was at least a bit about, you know, coming to appreciate George. And then after book 2, that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, they still dunk on him. Even here, Lucy says to herself, you know, refer to him as in his untucked state.
Right, yeah.
Which is great.
Everybody's still magnetized to him, though.
And they respect his opinion.
Yeah.
Right? They take him seriously. Despite his appearances and how he seems to not take himself seriously. Appearance-wise.
Yep. Lockwood seems to think that all of this stuff is like, it's genius, it's great, and it's all going to go perfectly when he presents it to Barnes. He's going to be completely convinced because he respects them as an agency. And they're part of the in crowd now, so no problem.
Yep. Just before that, I do want to point out, because I thought it was funny, when they were sort of listing all the bad things that had happened where Acmere's is, Lucy sort of guessed them all, and George said, Lucy's good at playing atrocities with a capital A. And I just love this idea that these kids make up these games, right? Because they're forced to be in these adult situations. Because it does feel like maybe that was a game that they have played many a time before.
Yeah, I guess the reason why this is happening.
But yes, Lockwood goes to Barnes full of confidence. He won't let us down. That total and utter idiot.
Right, yeah, there's a brief page break. It's a classic joke.
That mustachioed imbecile. That benighted, blinkered Jobsworth. He's a clown, a fraud, an oaf. I hate him. Love it.
Yeah, this is like Lockwood in the show after they like when Lucy wakes up alone and then they come back from that job, him and George, and he's like, I just want to watch him die. It's like the same energy.
Yes. Oh man, it would have been so great to see Cameron Chapman do this. But we never will.
Up. No.
Yeah. And then he has that bit where he says, I didn't even mention George's name or anything stupid to annoy him. Just great.
Barnes just completely blows him off. He's like, I'm too busy. I can't do this right now. Like, you want what? You want resources to do what? No, go away.
But at the end of all this complaining and really great use of the word skulking, Kipps comes up to them and basically has an offer.
This is good stuff, I think. I love the way that, so like before, I keep bringing this up, how Kipps was like, you're not part of the in crowd. You don't get how it works. And now he drops the other insider information that like DPRAC is run by the agencies and not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we've been seeing already to begin with, you know, with the whole Miss Wintergarden being able to get them in when they couldn't earn their place. And so Fitz and Rotwell are telling Barnes, you need to concentrate on this and that and the other. And that's why he has no time for Lockwood.
But also, that conversation at the beginning of the book between Lockwood and Kipps made Lockwood want to be in. But now this is the reverse. This is Kipps saying, no, I want to be out.
Yeah.
You have it right.
Yes. Yes, yes.
I mean, I don't think Lockwood realizes that, but Kipps does.
Mm-hmm. And I think Kipps even recognizes what you were just saying about George. The Lockwood and Co. like has something special.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is him saying, no, you're probably right. You've been right before. I feel like this is Kipps being who Lockwood thinks Barnes is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Kipps is saying, well, he's not saying it, but he's thinking it, you know, that they've been right before. They know what they're talking about.
And I think in both cases, what he said before and what he's saying now, the thing is that he could really see what Lockwood and Co. is. Yeah. That they just don't fit in. The reason they don't fit in is because they're actually like really good.
They're trying to solve the problem, not just bandage it up.
Yeah. And so the upshot of everything that we're saying is that Kipps is like, want to team up. It's basically his pitch. Like, I'll help you out.
And Lockwood is immediately like, no, it wouldn't work. We don't like each other. Which is hilarious considering he ends up pairing off Holly and Lucy, but whatever. Because he's not just saying we don't like each other and I don't want to work with you. He's saying that's not a good energy to bring into a haunting, which we've talked like that's come up before, that the energy you bring in can affect things. So that makes sense.
I feel like it's also kind of an excuse.
Oh yeah, 100%. He doesn't want to work with Kipps. The same way Lucy doesn't want to work with Holly. Let's all remember that Lockwood is the villain here.
Well,
the hypocrite.
So I see it a little bit different. Like it is, I think there is that. He doesn't want to be responsible for another person dying. And so even though he's asking for all these agents, he's like, I want to work with agents I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I know Kipps. I know his team. And like, I don't want to be responsible for you guys.
I'm not saying that Lockwood is not thinking that. I'm saying there's nothing in the text that gives me that. But like the text is from Lucy's point of view. I did almost say Holly. Great. Could be, right? Because that's not what Lucy's paying attention to right now.
It's just my reading of it. That he is just, I was like, why is he so avoidant when even George and Lucy are like, no, we should do this. This is smart. She might even be convinced to do it because he says no on a certain level.
Maybe. We're supposed to think that Lucy understands Lockwood better now from the snooping. And she does. She understands why he hates ghosts so much, where, a lot of his drive comes from. Mm-hmm. And she specifically points out that it's his pride making him say no here. Mm-hmm. And then she figures she's got to call him on it. I don't think we've ever seen Lucy, like, voice a disagreement in a business matter with Lockwood before.
No.
So I do think that this is kind of the beginning of their power dynamic shift.
It's a huge turning point.
Yeah, it needs to happen between the two of them.
I think because the intimacy that she achieved by looking into his past there lets her see, like, his poor judgment. She's like, no, I got to speak up.
And also see him as a bit, like, less of a mystery and more as just a human who makes mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is more powerful too, because the thing that she's arguing for is the exact opposite of the beginning of the book, Lucy, where she's like, Lockwood, we need to expand the team and include more people. And it's like, it's Kip's, it's Kat. Like, she doesn't like these people. She's not like, oh, let's invite our buddies. Like, this is a big deal. It's a turning point.
And it also just reiterates how much they trust George. Because she believes that George is right and that they have to do this.
Yes. Yeah. So I think all of this is, like, very earned by the whole book. Like, this moment is, like, really powerful, and it's all built up to this.
And we don't get Lockwood's response, which I hate. Like, I would love to see what he said to her there, or to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we just go on to the next chapter where he has agreed, and they are going to work together.
Oh, I did mean to mention back here where Kipps is kind of like, he's a little bit condescending to Lucy, because she's like, but Deepak is, like, in charge of the agencies, not the other way around. And he's like, what? You're so adorable.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of important for, like, the whole, like, bigger picture problem that we keep talking about, and, like, how capitalism is the problem. Because this is, like, a very neoliberal framing of the world where, like, this is kind of the world that we live in, right? Where it's like, we're constantly told, like, government is inefficient and bad and incompetent, unlike capitalist companies and corporations that are efficient and smart and innovative and competent, you know? So, like, government should be the tool of smart corporations who run things better. And, like, more and more we live in a world where, like, bridges fall apart, wildfires run rampant, and, like, things are getting worse and worse in many ways while profits go up all the time. So, like, that seems to be what the problem is, and, like, how it's happening. And because we know who's behind this particular outbreak, I think, like, it's all very on point to those themes.
I like how you said that in such a way that it's unclear if you're talking about the fictional world or our world when you say that's what the problem is.
Oh, I meant the fictional world.
No, but it's good because, like, that is what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's the same root causes.
Yeah, I think that stuff's on purpose. I don't think it's quite, like, so conspiratorial in our world, you know, compared to the problem world. But that's how you tell stories, you know?
Yeah. So in Chapter 19, the combined team of Lockwood and Co., Kip's crew, and Flowbones begin investigating Acme Brothers department store.
This might have my favorite part of this book.
Really?
Yeah.
These next two chapters are definitely my favorite that we've read so far. It's so creepy, and the building tension is so incredibly well done. I feel like that, like, low level tension building is really difficult to do in a book, but he just nails it in these two chapters.
I think this Stroud's strong suit is that, I would say. Yeah. Not that he's bad at the payoff, but he's so good at the buildup.
Yes. And it's that type of tension that I like, because it's not about interpersonal drama like the rest of the book has been. It's not the miscommunications or the not talking to each other, blah, 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 that I just, like, can't stand. Like, and that's not a writing, that's just my personal
thing.
That's a triggering, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not that serious. I just don't enjoy it. But this is the good type of creepy tension, and it's so good.
Yeah, part 5 and part 6 are, like, the novel really starts cracking off.
I think I mentioned I did not want to stop reading when I got to the end of chapter 20. Like, screw recording a podcast. I just want to read the rest of the book now. So the whole team minus Flo arrives at the outside the department store, and George points at like a grassy area in between stores and is like, plague pit.
Yeah.
And I love this idea that it's nice and grassy there because of the fertilizer beneath, and also maybe they didn't want to build on top of the dead bodies because I guess if you dug down too deep, you'd have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you think they're all still there? They gotta be, right? Like, this is...
I love to think that there's like park benches on top of it, you know? Like, it's a nice little grassy area where you can take a pause from your shopping, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy asks about the prison, and George said it's most likely under Acmere's.
Yeah.
And then just 50 yards up the street is where the barricade into the heavily haunted Chelsea area is.
Yeah, so like inside there, all the businesses are closed and stuff, right? But here,
yeah,
they're still open. The other thing that this kind of reminded me of the Red Room in Coombe Carey, where they set up like a chain circle, and then the blood was like dripping on the inside of the circle.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of reminded me, like, the more that we're in Acmere's, they're like, even though they have all these defenses and stuff set up inside the place, that we'll see that like there's still like tons of ghosts manifesting in here. Even though the like circle was supposed to keep you safe, like the aura and the strength combined with each other creates like zones of vulnerability. And I don't know, like I just feel like his world building just works really well for what we've learned.
I forgot the chapter art. It is a mannequin, and I'm pretty sure it might be Kip's because there's a joke about that.
I don't
but
think
when
that's
I was
Kip's. That's funny.
When I was noting down that it was a mannequin, I was forced to confront that how often do I spell mannequin? I was literally like, 2 N's? It must be a Q, right? It's got to be a Q.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
I was like,
Is there
how
a K
often
in this? I don't know.
It can't be a K. That looks ridiculous.
Mannequins are creepy.
Oh, they're so creepy. I always think of that scene in the female Ghostbusters.
That one's so good. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, where she looks in and she's like, that's a room of nightmares, and just walks on. Yeah. She's like, nope.
Nope. It's so good.
So good. And then one of them ends up following her anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the teams meet up with a little bit of, not bickering, but a little bit of insulting each other.
Yeah, this is the joke you were talking about where George makes the exact same observation. He's like, oh man, mannequins sure are ugly and creepy. Oh no, wait, that's Kip's. Ba-dum-bum. And Kat's not into it. She's like, yeah, this is what I expect from these people. We shouldn't have done this.
And then Lucy mentions that Kat doesn't seem to like Holly. I get for the story that we had to have Lucy and Holly working together here. Would have been so great to have Lucy and Kat working together. Just to see them bond over hating Holly.
Just the short part where they do work together, Kat's like, well, I don't hear anything, so I think you're full of it. So they would not have worked together very well, especially when she's like talking to Skull and stuff.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't work in different ways than it doesn't work with Holly, but it would have been funny instead of tensiony.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did actually hate that bit where girls just hate Holly for some reason. That's stupid.
Yeah, do you think that's a girl thing or that's a Lockwood and Co? She's like, oh, these people.
I think it's bad writing is what I think it is. Maybe it's just Lucy deciding that Kat doesn't like her.
Oh, maybe.
And there's no actual evidence to that. But I don't think I've ever said hello to someone before and immediately hated them. You know, like I just don't think that's a thing. And I want to make clear, I'm not saying I'm saint. There have been women and girls that I have hated. Oh my God, yes. Most of them are actually named Caitlin, but they spell it with a K. It's terrible. They all suck.
That's the first sign.
To be fair, if somebody introduced themselves as Caitlin, and then we had that conversation where I was like, oh, how do you spell it, blah, blah, and they said K, I probably would immediately hate them, or at least mistrust them, because I've never met a good one.
You're very, very open-minded. You just might be more enlightened than them.
I don't think that's true at all.
Trying to be nice.
I know, but I hate this implication because it feels like a thing that happens in media a lot. And I know I've harped on about this so much over the TV show and the books and everything. That's how girls are painted, that we can just look at someone and be like, ugh, is what I'm saying. I don't think that's how girls are, whether they be teenagers or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just didn't grow up around catty people. Well, I don't know. Some of them are pretty catty. But they would get to know you and decide to hate you, you know?
Yeah.
Most of the people that I hate most in the world have a lot in common with me. So, you know, like all of the things that I don't like about them are things that I don't like about myself. Unless they're dumb. I can't take dumb people.
No, I'm okay with that. I that.
I would much rather you be like a mean than dumb, which is terrible of me. Or like, I don't want to be friends with someone mean, but I mean, like, if I'm forced to work with you or something, I'd much rather mean than dumb.
No, I get that. Yeah, I understand.
I guess I'd be interested in hearing other people's experiences with this, but I've never looked at another woman without knowing anything about her and thought to myself, ooh, or even a smug, like, you know, like, I don't know how to describe this other than weird noises, apparently. like disgust or smug, like a smug dislike. I guess I just redefined disgust, but you know what I'm saying.
I've definitely, and I know this now, I know women who are like younger and who are like conventionally very beautiful, who have like high defenses to meeting other women, especially if those women are not conventionally beautiful, as if they're like interactions with them and the, you know, not with them specifically as an individual, but like as a category, those women just treat them badly, like right off the bat. And then they like have to talk to them for a while to be like, oh, you're not going to be rude to me for no good reason. Okay, cool. But maybe that's just those specific women that I know. I don't know.
We've talked about this a lot. Anyways, I dislike women hating women just because they're women, is what I was kind of trying to get at, which is kind of what this paragraph says.
Yeah, it definitely does. But yeah, before Flo Bones shows up, that's the vibe.
Which is great because then Flo comes up and it's like, she doesn't care about anything that's going on. Does she even care that there's a ghost there? I don't know.
Yeah, so this is my favorite part of this book, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is Flo coming in and doing all that. Although there is a really good joke before that at Bobby Vernon's expense where she says that he's so small that as he stood beside us, it looked like he was in the next room.
Yep. And like it doesn't stop because then after the whole Flo thing, she's like, oh, I could put you in my bag.
I know. I could put you right in there. Yeah. When
it's good.
She shows up and she's like, don't introduce me to anybody. Like, I'm not polite. That's the energy she's giving off right away. She's like, I know who everyone is based on your descriptions, which is a very like rude thing to be, at least the way that I was raised. Like it just, you're putting out there, like, I've talked about all of you behind your back. So I know who all of you are.
Yep.
And she's like making fun of Kips and his pasted on jewels and making fun of Bobby Vernon's size, Kat Godwin's weight, I guess, calling her too skinny or something like that.
Wonderful.
And then her and Holly meet, and I love this so much because Holly's entire thing is like being correct and following the rules of society, and she treats Flo like a person instead of like some kind of horror as like and you know, being homeless and grubby and all of this stuff. And Flo is so put off by it, they like instantly have a nice connection, and she's like charmed, I'm sure, you know, that's what she says back to Holly. they shook hands, and it like makes Lucy mad that they get along with each other.
Yep. Because she wants all the girls to hate Holly.
I think that this points to Stroud kind of knowing what he's been doing with all the girls hating each other. And that it's not okay for that to have been happening, because these two get along and Lucy doesn't like it, but she doesn't seem to understand why she doesn't like it. Because she says, like, somehow this annoyed me too. Like, she doesn't understand the reason that them getting along doesn't fit with her. And I think it's because of the entire way that she relates to other women as strangers.
I read this more as it just being that Lucy does not understand Holly.
For sure. Or Flo.
That's true, but I guess her misunderstanding of Flo affects her less, so it's not that big of a deal.
I just really like that Flo's entire trauma response, I talked about this before, is like, I'll be rude to you before you can be rude to me. Like, I'll control the way that you don't like me because you're definitely not going to like me. Right. And then Holly's trauma response is, everyone will like me because I follow the rules perfectly. And how those fit into each other in a way that, like, the two of them can become friends right away.
I like that. That's definitely what's happening. I don't think Stroud thought, oh, wait, I should have two girls like each other. Because we haven't had that yet.
I agree.
I don't think he's aware enough of what he's been doing to think that.
I agree. But I think this is the thing about good art and good artists, is that they can transcend themselves in like the things that they don't understand, because they write people in ways that are like true, like capital T true. You know what I mean? So like a really good writer, even if they're like an idiot, like some of the worst writers in terms of like you have like, you find out about how they see the world and stuff and you're like, wow, you're a terrible person. But if they're a really good artist, I think they will write stuff that like transcends their stupidity. And I think, I don't know, this moment just stands out to me as like, wow, this is so real and true. And it's, I don't know, it delights me personally that they like each other right away, especially how much Lucy doesn't like both of these women.
It is fun. And it works with the themes of Lucy feeling so outside everyone.
Yes, yeah. It
works really well.
But this is kind of, it's not quite the moment, but it's almost there where the whole team is here, because Skull is turned off right now.
That's true. This is the first time that they're all together, though. I love that.
The energy like really crackling here for me on this reread. I was like, oh, they're everybody's
I didn't
here.
even think about that because I was too like, I love this meeting with the department store head because it's so like the beginning of The Shining, the movie, when Jack Nicholson is talking to the guy who hires him. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so that like everything's fine, everything's normal, nothing's going to happen. But underneath that, it's so like everything's going to go extremely badly.
Yeah, it's all the opposite of what we're saying.
It's so good.
That's a really good comparison, the Shining in this place.
Right? It's that same like building tension that The Shining has. Anyway, so this guy basically talks about how he doesn't want agents here. You know, they haven't been a part of the haunting, you know, and I think Lockwood or somebody says, really? Because Chelsea's right there, you know, like all the issue is right there and nothing's
There's no
happened
problem.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy just talks about all the defenses that they have and how they're a respectable place and they don't want children running around ruining all the seasonal creations.
I don't know how you picture the tree thing, but it's hideous in my mind.
Okay, here's how I picture the whole thing. You walk in the front doors. I don't know why I picture this so vividly. I'm not usually a vivid like imagery person when I read books, but this is so clear in my head. You walk in and you have like, you know how sometimes there's big sort of curving stairs or escalators going up to the second floor, but in front of you, the second floor doesn't quite reach. So it's like a big entranceway.
Yep.
And there's a big tree in the middle of this with stairs curving up around it.
Yep.
And it spans, like it starts on the bottom floor, but it goes up to the second floor. And it's just this huge monstrosity.
Yeah, that's how I see it too.
but it somehow also looks very cheap.
Yes. You can see the like paintedness of it. It doesn't look like a real tree at all in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got like tissue paper all over it in different colors.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a way to do it with like gold and silver and bronze that would make it look really amazing and expensive and beautiful, but that is not what happened here.
No. It's like bright orange tissue paper and yellow. And, yeah.
Kind of has that like elementary school
Exactly.
art project
Yes.
vibe, but it's huge.
It reminds me, this is a totally different vibe from The Shining, but it's like the part in Ghostbusters with Slimer where,
In the hotel?
Yeah, where the guy is like, listen, like things,
Right, yeah.
keep it cool. Like everything's got to be okay. And they're like, yeah, no problem. That's what we do. And then they like destroy it.
100%. But also the same energy because the guy's like, look, everybody knows about the disturbances on the third floor, but we just ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the guy who's like,
exactly.
You know, we've got our silver, we've got iron in the walls, you know, we're good here. And eventually the guy just says, no, I say that you leave. And Lockwood tries to lie and bluster. And Kipps is just like, allow me. This is what I do, sir.
It's cool to see him be competent.
It is. Yeah. We get that so seldom.
Yeah.
And to see him find a place in the agency that he is going to be a part of.
This is a good role for him. He's very good at this. The guy immediately crumples.
And it shows to a degree, again, I don't think this was true in book 1, but through the interactions that we've seen over the past 3 books, especially at the end of book 2, Kipps has become what he was supposed to be. A good leader, you know, a good, or not even leader, but a good supervisor. You know, he's the adult there.
Yeah.
And he steps into that really well.
I do like when the guy is like explaining to them and stuff like, oh yeah, we had problems in the past, but we rebuilt everything. And it's, you know, iron is laced into the foundations and in the walls and all this stuff. And that really explains why like this is literally not on the map.
Yeah.
Because it's like that whole thing with the, you know, the spot in the red room and all that. That's why it's like this. And
then just as the guy gives in after Kipps's amazing speech, and he's like walking out, and Lockwood is just like, oh, one thing. You have no dangerous visitors here, yet you give your people silver brooches. Does that mean? And he's just like, oh, yes, the place is haunted. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Where isn't these days? And it's just like, okay, sir.
Right. And that's with all this iron here. So that like tells you something crazy. And when they talk to the people, they're like, oh, I really don't like it when it's noon and the whole place gets dark and the ghosts start popping out and like the atmosphere gets weird. That's bad. Like, and this is the whole thing that we've had for this entire book. How like the same thing at Mrs. Wintergarden, where she's like, well, yeah, there's a haunting, but I'm not going to bother Deepak about it. Like these people aren't calling this shit in.
Which is illegal.
And just like at Lavender Lodge at the beginning, right? Like they know they have a problem, but they're not talking to anybody about it. Well, with those people, it was a little bit different, but it's the same motivation because they're like, we want to make money. We're not going to interrupt things with a bunch of kids running around tearing stuff up because that will interrupt the money flow.
And I don't mind comparing Miss Wintergarden, whatever, to a serial killer. I think that's kind of accurate, honestly, because she just did not care about those people.
And neither does this guy. He's like, they've got brooches. They know what to do. It's their fault if they don't lock up in time. Money is more important than people.
Yeah, and I'm sure these people need the job, you know, so they can't all leave.
What else are they
I have a feeling that, like, jobs outside of, like, being related to the problem are thin on the ground in London.
Oh, yeah, these people don't get paid enough.
But yes, as you said, they start interviewing the employees to find out what it's like to live there. And this is really where the tension starts building, because we just hear about how, like, stifling it feels, about how sometimes they just gotta go outside to get some fresh air. And meanwhile, like, the big Chelsea Outbreak is 50 yards, but outside is better.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes I sit in the plague pit park and it's better over there.
Go visit the dead bodies. Which is better.
Yeah.
Jesus. And then like they talk about how there was one sighting of a visitor, and then Lucy's like, can we talk to that person? Like, oh no, she's dead.
Nah, she died. That's
I was
okay.
like, what? Like, oh yeah, it was probably her heart. And like, okay. And that is a great tension building moment. Like, you're just like, maybe don't stay in this place tonight, my friends.
Yeah, this
Maybe
thing
don't.
sounds terrible. So that had to be a younger person too, on top of it, because if
Oh, I
they
didn't even
could see
think
it.
about that.
Yeah, that thing sounds horrifying. It's like walking on all fours. She tries to write the whole thing off. You know, the lady is like, oh yeah, she probably had a heart condition or something. Who knows? And you people don't know how the problem works anyway. Who knows anything? The world is crazy. Everything's upside down. So you can tell all these people are terrified who work here.
Yep. And seem to have like a good understanding of how the world works. You know, how she says that, like, you don't know. How do you know? Do you talk to them? And, like, she just happens to be talking to the one person who can. But, like, that aside, her point stands, other than that it's Lucy.
I love that Holly doesn't miss the opportunity to use that against
100%.
Lucy. Yeah. And she is deliberately provocative and passive aggressive. She's like, no, it's not advised to do that.
It's not considered wise.
They keep asking people stuff and it's all pretty bad. And then they go and meet up with
Well, before that, we do
again.
kind of get an explanation of what it feels like before they meet up, which I think is kind of important because Lucy says something about a faint yet palpable unease. It was like a tingle on the skin, a prickling in the stomach, familiar to me, but not the usual malaise, chill, or creeping fear.
Something familiar about it.
Yeah, and then she does get a chance to talk to Skull about it, and he kind of says the same thing, like, I feel it, but let me think about it.
Oh yeah, that's really important that she kind of runs away a little bit and turns Skull on.
Turn Skull on.
So Skull's been here the whole time, but his lid was closed.
And then all the employees leave. The team all sort of gets together to talk about a plan. The chapter just ends fabulously where Lucy writes or says or narrates, yes, all the living inhabitants of the store had left, but that didn't mean we were alone. Of course not. After dark, we never are. Which is, if you were a kid reading this and then like that was the last chapter you read before going to sleep, I feel like you would just kind of lie there in bed like, great, wonderful, you know? Like,
why am I reading this again? But yeah, we go to chapter 20 where Holly, Lucy, and Skull search the second floor, and Skull realizes the atmosphere is like the bone glass.
and the chapter art here is the trail of spiders, or the like line of spiders that we see later, I think. That's what you think it is, right?
Yeah, it's the ghost that walks around on all fours. Yeah.
But like you can't quite see the all fours. Like I don't.
It looks like their arm is out. The way that it's on its
Maybe.
all fours is the way it's described is that it walks on its elbows and knees at the same time and kind of scuttles around.
I see.
It's really creepy.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
literally
like it.
creepy.
I don't like anything about it or this chapter art.
No, it's really scary. It's great. I'm a little bit confused about this. Is this thing also the fetch, or is it its own different thing?
Okay. I just double checked in the glossary that poltergeists do not have apparitions. So
Yeah,
it
they
must
don't.
be either the fetch or just another ghost. No, it probably is the fetch because it's calling Lucy's name.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yes,
So
because
that's
Lucy
the
hears
same
her
thing.
name being
Yeah.
called. Yeah. It just isn't taking a form yet. Like, it feels like maybe it takes time to know what you'd want to see.
So this is its default form? Oh,
Yeah,
man.
maybe. So the opening paragraph here does seem to imply that teenagers look better when it's dark or when you can't quite see them. And I just think that's a little bit mean.
You don't think this is just Lucy's opinion? I think everybody looks better in the dark. I think that's kind of true.
Just how she's like, I'm talking visually here. Suddenly, every embarrassing pimple is cloaked in shadow. Jaws become firmer, waistlines sleeker, unwashed faces become pale and interesting. But she specifically says for agents, which are teenagers. It just, it's such a weird point to make.
It is weird.
In the middle of all this tension.
I think it does. It's like a show don't tell a little bit of she feels more comfortable now that everybody's gone and it's dark and like business is starting. Like this is her element.
Right. That's fair. I guess I wish it had been put differently.
Yeah, it is weird. It is weird.
It's just, it kind of pulls me out of it.
Yeah, she says our similarities outweighed our differences. We were all made of the same stuff. We had our rapiers and other weapons. We shared a cool seriousness of purpose. Even Flo looked businesslike. I think this is where I wrote down the Avengers are assembled for the first time.
Oh, the team. Plus Kat and Bobby. But Bobby's so little. Does he even count?
He's like an appendix and a tinier appendix.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor Bobby.
So they all chat a bit about how they felt walking around and the information they got from people. And Holly asks, what kind of ghost might it be? And nobody knows. So that's a great start off to the evening. Bobby Vernon does say that a couple people heard a voice calling out their name, always at dusk, as they were leaving.
And they're like, oh, did anybody, Lucy's like, so did anybody listen to the voice? And they're all like, who would listen to the voice of a ghost, you loser? So like...
Oh, did they ever follow the sound? Like, no. Oh, and here it says Kate Godwin in my book and not Kat.
That's right. Kat's short for Kate, yeah.
But it's the same, but that doesn't make sense.
They say it too. I noticed this. But usually it does say Kat, but it was both written out and said is Kate Godwin, so... Yeah, who would ever obey a disembodied voice? And then Holly's like, oh, you never know. Some people might be tempted. So again, she's like on her passive-aggressive barbing of Lucy. That
then inspires Lockwood to pair off Lucy and Holly to work together, even though he previously said that, that kind of bickering energy can be bad at a haunting like this. I'm like, I get that we needed it to happen for the story. But Lockwood knows better. Like, why did he pair them off?
And he goes with Kipps. Like, what is that about? Everybody...
that one kind of makes sense to me, because everybody on the team doesn't like Kipps at this point. And so he thought, you know what, I'll be able to control myself. So I'll go with Kipps. Right? Like, that makes sense to me.
I just thought he was like, okay, who is everyone's literary foil at this moment?
Oh, yeah, that also.
We'll pair off that way. Except for Kat and Bobby. They're just partners.
They're just there.
Yeah.
The appendixes. But, like, I can understand where he thought George would be no good with Kipps, because George and Kipps cannot help themselves.
Oh, yeah, that would be bad.
Right? And... like Lucy and Kipps may have worked, but Lucy has to go with Holly so that the story works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this is how it was going to go. It had to go this way.
Yeah. And again, I get that, but also whatever. It's a stupid decision.
I think the pairing off, the implication of this, I think Stroud's aware of what you're saying, because the implication of how the pairing goes is that everybody is paired off first and they're just kind of the remainder.
But also, later on, we technically haven't read these chapters yet, but Lucy and Lockwood have a conversation later on where it seems like he did it on purpose. Like he thought to himself, this will make them be friends.
You're right.
In the most dangerous situation.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like an interesting choice. But before that does happen, they do talk about what Lucy has been hearing and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that Lucy says, I don't really know. It's like background buzz, a kind of radiation. It's strong, but also muffled. Like it's mostly blocked, but managing to seep in anyway. I think Because of what Skull says in a bit, knowing that it's like a background buzz is kind of important.
Yeah. But she can't give any details. She's like, it doesn't have an origin. There's nothing specific. It's just like in the atmosphere.
I wonder what Holly thinks about that.
I think it makes her mad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it does. Lockwood's complete trust in Lucy's talent.
Yep. But she's like, I don't know. No details, no specifics. And he's like, I trust you completely. And she's like, what?
So then Holly and Lucy go off together. I love Lucy's, I gave my partner a token smile. So, Holly, shall we go? Like, I feel this interaction in my bones when you're forced to work with someone you don't like. And it's like, well, let's make the most of this, I guess.
I see both of their eyes when they look at each other are like dead and the smiles are too big. And yeah, it's not good.
And as they walk off, Skull is immediately like, I've done my thinking and I've had an idea.
Oh, God.
And presumably Holly's like, great, what is it?
The idea is murder.
Yeah, the idea is lure her down to kitchenware and brain her with a skillet.
Right.
I love Skull.
Again, Skull is Lucy's inner voice.
And then Holly and Lucy are petty to each other for a bit as they take readings. But they're also kind of, for the first time, talking about Holly and what's up with her, I guess. You know, now she does have some talent. She trained as a field agent when she was younger.
Yeah, because Lucy's being very patronizing to her, and she's like, do you know the Fitz Manual 101 way of like, you know, mapping out a zone and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yes, I actually was a field agent. I am not an idiot.
I do like the idea that Lucy is quoting the Fitz Manual to Holly, which is like the opposite of their personalities.
Yes, I think that really pisses off Holly.
Yeah.
This is why she opens up to her too, I think, to be like, I am a real agent. Like, I have credentials, please.
I have just as much trauma as the rest of you. Mm-hmm. I belong.
Mm-hmm.
And she does start telling Lucy about the trauma and mentions something called the Cotton Street Killings, but also like belittles where Lucy is from, which...
Yeah, in your tiny northern town. Yeah.
Yeah, so... Lucy remains uninterested. And also there's like ghost things happening. Mm-hmm. Lucy hears a voice. Holly obviously did not. It's really great stuff, this whole conversation. And then Skull chimes in with like, could be an egg whisk. You can kill her with an egg whisk. I don't know how you would, but you could.
It's really stupid. I've got one word for you, egg whisk. And she's like, that's 2 words.
Yeah.
This joke's good. Yeah, because the tension between them is like rising, and this both diffuses it, but also like underlines it in a good way. So it's not gone, but like you as the reader kind of laugh, and then you're like, but this is still not a good working relationship.
Yeah, it does make me wonder if Skull diffused the tension on purpose because he knew it was like summoning the ghost.
Oh, interesting.
Which is maybe giving Skull like way too much credit, but like Skull wants Lucy to stay alive because she's the only person he can talk to.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true yet. Any of it.
Yeah, just an idea that popped into my head right now.
Yeah, he might want to kill them all still, or think that that's a good idea and have not thought through it.
Not Lucy
completely.
though. Like, if Skull got out of his jar right now, he would not touch Lucy because that's who he can talk to. That's his company.
Mm. You don't think he would kill her
so
if he could get out?
Lucy? No. Everybody else? Yes. Lucy? No.
I don't know.
He can talk to her. He can have a full conversation with her. I don't even think he can have that with other ghosts.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I'm not saying that he thinks she's his best friend yet.
Yeah.
I'm saying he wouldn't give up somebody to gloat to.
Maybe. Yeah, I could see that. It's really interesting. Like, I keep thinking about that last interview that Jonathan Stroud did with the writing group or whatever the YouTube channel is.
Yep.
Where he talked about the bond that Lucy and Skull have and how they have a supernatural effect on each other. This is how he sees things. He never like says this in the text, but that that Lucy makes Skull a stronger type 3 and that Skull makes Lucy a stronger, like whatever kind of listener she is. And that the longer they're together and the more deeply enmeshed they are, the stronger each of them is. That's a really interesting concept to me. And I think you can see it here from the time that she turns Skull on, like she's hearing her voice more from this other ghost, and she's more of a beacon to the other ghosts and has a stronger effect on like the poltergeist later and all that stuff because Skull's around, I think.
That's really interesting because we see that mirrored in book 5 with other people. You know, that relationship with a type 3 making you a stronger talent. I wish we got more of that, of like what happened with those other people.
Yeah, prequel, but a dark, evil prequel that can never be written.
Evil prequel. No, yeah. I don't want a prequel. I mean, I'd read it obviously, but more just I wish we had more information about, like we saw them as foils more, those two and these two. Yeah. And had Lucy and Skull grapple with what they could potentially become.
Yeah, I like that all of it's there. I see it more clearly after he said that. I was like, oh man.
Anyway, so this is where things get super creepy.
Yeah, she hears her voice again.
And there's like apparitions that everyone can see, kind of.
Ghost fog, yeah.
Yeah, ghost fog and just like vague outlines, but they don't seem to have any motivation or anything. They're just there.
This place is terrible. They're like, oh, nothing's going on. And it's like the sun just went down and it's like a nightmare already.
And it's just full of ghosts. Yeah, so the ghost calls Lucy's name, as you said, and Skull hears it too, but nobody else does. And then Skull talks about how the fetch has like latched itself onto Lucy.
Yeah, something pulls itself towards you. And she's like, why not Holly or Kate Godwin? And he's like, because you're unique. You shine like a beacon. That's really interesting to me. That
yes.
He's like, why do you think I talk with you? It's not because like he takes the moment to kind of insult her backhandedly. Be like, you know, you're a supernatural beacon. That's the only reason I would talk to you, Lucy.
And it even says, like, if you don't want this, quit. Go do something else.
All the Skull stuff is so good.
Yeah, and then so Skull says, many spirits wandering in this place, most seem lost. I sense no willpower in them, but there are other stronger powers here that do have will. One of them is hunting you. That's the fetch, I think.
I think so too.
Because the poltergeist is just there.
He does, this is when he trigs to like, hey, this is like the bone glass.
Yeah, the background buzzing.
And the bone glass, you know, the way that George explained it to us and stuff, we know that is a synthetic cluster. Like Coombe Carey Hall was a more organic cluster where we had like a very strong ghost in the form of the monks who triggered other ghosts that triggered other ghosts that triggered other ghosts. And it's kind of like a building thing. But the bone glass was like arranged on purpose in order to like trigger a greater presence from the sources being arranged in a particular way. And so we're having this same thing, but on a much bigger level.
Or like it's quieter, but also they're surrounded by iron.
Because they're so suppressed. Yeah.
Because it's so suppressed. Which does point to it being extremely strong if they're still feeling it.
It's like when they unearth Bickerstaff's, you know, like iron coffin or whatever, that like, even though there's all that iron, just with a tiny little crack, he's able to like almost kill them.
And then Lucy does sort of also make the connection, and we get sort of a recap of the bone glass. And then Skull says, it's not the bone glass, of course. It's different, bigger, and farther away, but it's the same sort of feeling, a disruption in the fabric of things. And then this is the first time that we see, anyway, Holly saying, why are you talking to yourself, Lucy?
Yeah, whoops.
And this is another reason Well, okay, this is one reason why, obviously, Lucy couldn't go with any of Kip's team, because she has Skull. But why wouldn't she be with George or somebody who knows about Skull?
Yeah. I feel like George would be super interested in all of that. He would love that.
Again, I get story-wise, it was never going to happen. But if you're from a real-world perspective, the thing that makes the most sense is Lockwood and Lucy. Because George wanted to be in the basement. And but Lockwood would never, because he's in his own head about everything.
Yeah. And it's also good narratively to leave Lockwood and Lucy pairing up for the actual climax, because the real problem is between them and not, this is like a superficial problem between Holly and Lucy. Yeah,
everything makes sense from a storytelling perspective. I'm just saying from a real world, if you were...
Oh, team management. Yeah, this is a
team
failure.
management. Yeah. Nothing makes any sense here.
Yeah. But I think it is a failure on Lockwood's part because of the actual real problem between him and Lucy. Like
100%.
Yeah.
He would never have paired himself off with Lucy here because he doesn't want that. Yeah.
Yep. Because he does want it, but he can't.
Well, yes.
But yeah, Holly is not an idiot, it turns out, and is able to be like, what are you doing? Like, who are you talking to?
And Lucy's like, myself. I was just talking to myself, thinking out loud.
I'm crazy, Holly. You know.
And even Lucy's like, there's no way this would have convinced even a 3-year-old. So we just ignored it and moved on. And then Lockwood appears, coat swishing, lantern swinging, as he does.
Yeah, everybody's getting jumpy because this place is terrible. So he's checking in on everybody.
And Holly is very quick to tattle on Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is terrible. Which is just like, Lucy's been hearing voices again. Like... what?
Yeah, it's she does this on purpose to make Lucy feel bad. Like they're very much at each other's throats.
Oh yeah. Like Lucy's not innocent here either. Definitely not. Yeah. And obviously Holly knows that doing it in front of Lockwood is even worse for Lucy.
The worst.
Anyways, Lucy tells him that it's called her name. Obviously doesn't really mention anything Skull has said. Interesting thought. If Holly wasn't there, would she have said that Skull said it was hunting her in particular?
She could have said that, like, hey, I think it's like the bone glass, but she really doesn't even say that.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but he's like, we're going to meet up later, so be sure not to be late for that. After he leaves, I like that Lucy, to try and, like, get back into the flow of, like, doing their grid search, she's like... yeah, so what was that whole thing about the Cotton Street killing you were talking about? It was a big deal for you or something? And then Holly gets to tell her backstory. And immediately, like, Lucy tunes out of it. She's like, whatever. I don't care about this.
Which is terrible. But also, like, almost everything that happened in this story, at least that Holly tells us, is exactly what happened to Lucy.
Yeah.
Right, the crawling out of a window and the having to wait around till morning type of thing while her team died around her. That is almost exactly what happened to Lucy, because Lucy too had to crawl out of a window, and that was the only way, like, from the second floor. And
Yep. Yeah, and wait on the roof. Yeah, and all that kind of stuff. It's like the same exact story. I think that's totally on purpose, obviously. I mean, a lot of people have the same story, a lot of agents, because this is like the world. But
yeah,
I think that, you know, Holly is kind of constructed to be a narrative foil for Lucy in a lot of ways of, like, what if Lucy had been a quote unquote good girl and followed the Fitz manual way? She could have grown up to be a little Holly Monroe. And maybe, you know, she feels like weirdly conflicted about all the ways she's not quote unquote right, that she doesn't do things the right way, that she doesn't fit in, even though all of those are her strength and, like, what makes her awesome. She just, you know, she knows that she's quote unquote wrong, but she's learning more and more that the world is wrong and that she's not wrong, but it still affects the way that she sees herself.
But she does say, or she thinks to herself, it was a rough story. But even as she spoke, I was distracted. So she does tune her out, but she does also say, yeah, that it sucks.
And I like that she asked her to tell the story too. It's not just Holly vomiting it out. She did invite her to say it.
And I do. So eventually Lucy says, yeah, sounds bad. Again, though, she is distracted by a haunting. Like, this is a shitty way to respond to somebody's teammates dying. But A, it's happened to all of them.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the team, Holly. You fit. And B, there's a ghost calling Lucy's name, you know? Like,
oh yeah, they're in a nightmare place, yeah.
this is the bad time to be doing this. And so of course Holly's just like, that's all you're gonna say?
Mm-hmm. Holly feels very vulnerable and very like insulted and hurt by this.
And to be fair, Lucy thinks the precise same thing happened to me, but she doesn't say it. If she'd said that, I feel like maybe things would have gone a little differently. But Lucy's not going to open up to Holly at this point.
Her response is like, I shrugged. I scarcely heard her. Because
she says, I'm sorry, but if you were an agent, stuff happens.
Well, then, yeah, and then Holly is like, you don't understand. Like, they took me off the front line. And like, I can do this work. I just haven't done it since then. Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm adequate. I can do, like, this triggers all of her trauma, right? This is where she feels inadequate and all this stuff. And Lucy is like totally tuned out. I don't even hear her. But I think when I reread this, and I talked about this earlier, like the way that she's so tuned out of Holly emotionally is the opposite of when we had the whole thing with Lockwood in Jessica's room. Yeah. And how all of this is like calibrated to be the opposite of each other, both in like, they're very safe in Portland Row. They're very in danger here. Like, they are very, very different circumstances. The way that you're saying, like, it makes sense. But I don't think that even if they were very, very safe, I don't think that Lucy would be tuned in emotionally to Holly's trauma. She doesn't have any space for it, because I think it is the same as her trauma, and it's so reflective of her. She would have to, like, to accept Holly, she would have to accept things about herself and confront things. She's just not ready to do any of that.
And there is also, like, this happened to Holly, and then Holly was taken off the front lawns and
all the
lines.
Lines. Yeah.
And given a cushy job and sort of taken care of.
Yes.
Well, Lucy had to run away from home because her town turned on her. And I'm actually not sure how much of that was in the book and how much of that was in the show, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, she had to leave home. She had to go to a totally different place.
She had to run away and just hope that she got a job and a place to stay, and like had to take care of herself before she found Lockwood and co. So
and those guys did start to take care of her, but then they've turned on her. Like, they've turned off all of the like acceptance and everything. Like, it's gone. And so I think that's totally at play.
I do feel like if Lucy had said something here, Holly would be a little bit softer towards her. Not a lot, but a little bit. But there was no way that Lucy was going to be like, oh, this connects us, because it just wasn't the same.
No, they feel
from
more
Lucy's
divided. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the point of this. Like, we're building up more and more resentment between them because we need it to explode.
So Lucy doesn't really respond. She's just concentrating on all the ghosty stuff. And this is when Holly kind of walks away, right? And starts looking at something completely different. And then
she's like weirdly looking at the clothes and like touching the clothes and stuff.
That makes sense to me, though. Like, doing something with your hands when you're feeling like, if she doesn't, maybe she'll strangle Lucy. You know what I mean? Or punch her, or do something stupid. So she's just like distracting herself. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. And then Lucy hears her name called again, and then sees the most terrifying thing that Jonathan Stroud has ever described.
Yeah, this is really creepy. It says, scarcely blacker than the blackness all around, it dragged itself along on knees and elbows with a series of slow, jerking movements. Now and again it advanced in swift scuttles, as a hunting spider might, but the overall impression was of obnoxious weakness and of pain.
And then she sees like a line of spiders or a line of darkness following behind it that she eventually realizes are spiders. Gross,
Crazy.
gross. Nope. And she's kind of like taken in by it. Like she can't move. She can't hear anything else. She can't really see anything else. Just it and the terror. And then eventually she kind of comes out of it and realizes she was like ghost locked to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that she had bitten through her tongue, is it? Or
Yeah,
driven my teeth into my tongue, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that her mouth was full of blood.
Ugh.
And Holly is still just running her hands through the clothes.
Mm-hmm. Didn't notice it.
Didn't notice at all. And that is the end of chapter 20. And let me tell you, I didn't like putting my book down this morning. Now we have to wait a week to talk about the rest? Ugh.
Well, nothing happens in these next 2 chapters anyway.
You're right. I'm sorry. I forgot. It's just boring after this.
Boring. Yeah, we're getting to the end. That's good stuff.
Crazy. Best joke? My favorite was Flo saying that she could put Bobby Vernon in her little... No, you know what? No. Lucy's like, he looked like he was farther away from the rest of them because he was so small.
When he stood beside us, he looked like he was in another room.
Yeah, it's like that old, the Father Ted joke with, those cows are far away. This one is small.
I did like, there was a joke we didn't talk about. I don't think it's the best joke, but it was George's like, remember Coombe Carey Hall? The most haunted place in England? Yes. Well, it's not as bad as that. They're like, thank God. I think I like the transition joke the most where Lockwood is Barnes loves us. We're in, guys. And then a line later, he's like, that total idiot. And all of that stuff. And
it's one of those ones that like, it's obviously coming, but it still works.
Yeah, it still works. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could just hear Cameron Chapman doing the whole thing.
Yep. Most punk rock.
I felt like when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is the most punk rock thing. And it was with Lucy, but now I can't.
I feel like Lucy's standing up to Lockwood.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Where she's like,
that one.
Yeah, Kip's is got to be on the team. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like that one because doing what you have to do to get the good done, that's very punk rock. I do also enjoy, though, Kip's when he gives that speech to the manager, the owner at Acmere's. When he gets them in. I think that's really good too, using his power for good.
Oh man, Kip's the punk rock one. That's wild.
No, I want to make clear. I do think it is when Lucy stands up to Lockwood. I think that is what the most punk rock is, especially because we know how she feels about him.
Mm-hmm.
But the Kip scene is good too.
It is good.
I don't think I'm ready to give Kip's most punk rock just yet.
He's so much more himself once he accepts that he's not the big dog. He's so much of a better character at that point. It really does start here.
Yeah, this is really the beginning of Kip's being a good guy.
Yeah.
And realizing that that's what he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good. I feel like the beginning of this book, we were just getting through it to get to this. Because I love this part so much.
Acmere's is great. And then it gets terrible at the very end.
No, but that's good too. That's the kind of tension I like. Like it is still the interpersonal drama, but it isn't based on misunderstandings.
Yeah. It's earned, but it's like, it's still like a hammer between the eyes. It's just like, what?
Yeah, like I'm not saying I'm grinning when it happens or that the first bit of book 4 is very happy.
Yeah.
But it is really good, angsty writing. And that I love much better than this. We're not talking, everybody's got tension, blah, 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 blah. Like, please just give me the blow up already. But I guess that will be next week. And if you want to, please reach out about how you feel on the term chocolate chip cookie. Please do so on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast. Or if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at Inferior Kate Reads, where I post about the books that I've read, but I haven't in a while. because I've let it build up and now I don't know where to start. I should just post. Anyways, you can do it.
You would be like, here's a big pile of books. I don't know. They were fine. Actually, they were all bad.
I've read some good books this year, but it has been mostly not great.
If you want to send us an email about chocolate chip scones, you can do that by using contact@hollowgroundmedia.com, or you can go to the homepage, hollowgroundmedia.com/contact.
And remember, they'll never suspect an egg whisk.